So, Lori, I think this our audience has a good notion of what the TPP is, but let's reiterate exactly what we mean when we say the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And there's also, of course, the TTIP, which is essentially its sister treaty with the European with the EU and European Union. And just fill us in on what the sort of the broad strokes are of the TPP before we dig into the details and where we are in the process, because that's a big part of this.
So the agreements get branded as free trade agreements by the interests trying to sell them. But the most important thing to understand is that trade is the least of what these are about. These agreements basically have at their core provisions that incentivize the offshoring of American jobs. And that is the first clue to why all of the big chronic offshoring companies like them. And the polling shows working people, Democrats, Independents, and Republicans are deeply suspicious that these agreements are bad for their jobs. They make it easier to offshore jobs, and that provision's in the investment chapter. Another very serious problem with these agreements is that they forbid the use of buy local, buy American rules. So we're not just offshoring our jobs, we're offshoring our tax dollars. Another chapter would raise medicine prices. Even though this is supposed to be a free trade agreement, these chapters on patents and copyrights basically expand the monopoly a big company, say a pharmaceutical company, has to stop competition with generics and keep up prices. Another chapter rolls back financial regulation. The way to think about it, I guess, is like some kind of Trojan horse painted as a trade agreement. And what's inside are a lot of policies that couldn't get through Congress or state legislatures through normal process, and these incentives to offshore jobs. And the reason we get agreements like this is 9 years of, in the case of TPP, closed-door negotiations where the public, Congress, the press are shut out, but we have a system where there are 500 official corporate trade advisors. So the TPP had a final deal hatched in October of last year, and they signed the deal on February 3rd of this year. But here's the thing everyone should know. While it's signed, that agreement is nothing but a 5,000-page doorstop unless both the House and the Senate vote by a simple majority to approve it. And right now, there are not the votes to pass it in the House. So if this litany of woe, this sort of delivery mechanism branded as a trade agreement of lost jobs, lower wages, unsafe food, and higher medicine prices is not for you, the thing to do is to make sure that there isn't a majority when push comes to shove to put the thing into effect.
My understanding is that what this does, broadly speaking, is it codifies regulations sort of almost transcendent of sovereign and national boundaries. And it codifies these regulations in some ways that it's the most stringent that it could ever be going forward, so that it provides for these international companies, because we know now, I think everyone is savvy enough to be aware that corporations are not bound by geography anymore. They go just simply to where they pay the lowest tax rates, where they can exploit the most out of workers and consumers, that this basically provides them a sort of a ceiling of what they're going to have to deal with in terms of regulations, anything that could confine their profits in some way. And these are profits that don't necessarily come back to us, but they go to shareholders. And so that in many ways, they've achieved what they set out to achieve, which is just sort of making it easier for corporations. And that takes us to that is InvestorState Resolution. Talk about that element of this, because I think that's the one that I think scares people on both the right and the left.
Well, first, just to go to your point, so the agreement isn't a treaty, so it doesn't supersede our laws, but the actual provision that is in TPP and has been in all of these agreements is a provision that says each country shall ensure the conformity of their domestic laws, regulations, and administrative procedures with the agreement. And what that means is any state, federal, local law has to, policy, government action, has to be within the rules that the agreement sets forth. So the premise that you've laid out, folks really need to think about that, because that's one of the most dangerous, worrying things about these agreements. You are setting a ceiling on progress. You are setting a ceiling at a very low retrograde level of what is allowable financial regulation, of whether you can have competition to bring down medicine prices, of whether or not you're going to subsidize offshoring, of whether you can ban buy local or you can pass a new resolution for it. It is locking into place this vision of enforceable global governance that is for and by the big companies and to our detriment. And if you think about what that means, adding to it the investor-state system, which I'm going to describe, it really is much bigger than what it means for trade per se, but it will affect every aspect of our day-to-day lives. So this investor-state dispute settlement system, sometimes folks you hear that called ISDS. It's so outlandish that when people first hear about this, they won't believe it. So I send people, folks, write this down. Go to tradewatch.org. That's tradewatch.org. Our website has a whole section on the TPP where you can get fact sheets on each one of these issues I've raised. Pass the word, spread the word according to where folks would be most interested. But if you go to the section about corporate tribunals, you can actually get a translated from gobbledygook narrative of all the worst of these cases. Because here's how this works. Under investor state, which the TPP would expand enormously, any foreign company operating in this country that's also incorporated in a TPP country, so not just companies from those TPP countries, but like, I don't know, the Chinese state-owned enterprises, a lot of whom are in Vietnam. As long as they're operating here, but they're incorporated in one of those other 12 TPP countries, they have the right to skirt our laws, skirt our courts, and go to a foreign arbitration tribunal staffed by 3 private sector attorneys who act as judges to determine whether or not we, the taxpayer, must compensate from the federal treasury these foreign investors because some of the extraordinary new rights and privileges the TPP would give them have been undermined by some government action. And it does not matter if that government policy or action has been approved by the U.S. Supreme Court. It does not matter if that policy or action treats foreign and domestic companies the same. If it goes beyond the rights and privileges that foreign investors are guaranteed in the TPP, we taxpayers can be ordered in this extrajudicial tribunal of private sector lawyers who, by the way, rotate between playing judge, there are air quotes around that, and being a lawyer suing a government for one of these corporations. Yes, totally unethical. If they were a judge, they flip roles. These sort of kangaroo courts get to order us to pay cash for the loss of future expected profits caused by some violation of their new investor right. Now, this all sounds so lunatic that no one believes it, so go to our website because there's a list of cases. And those cases are places where already $500 million has been paid out under a narrower version of this outrageous policy that's in the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. Governments have had to pay out for water policies, timber policies, toxics bans, and the TPP would double our liability, having 9,500 new Japanese, Australian, other companies able to attack our laws.
Lori, we got to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about further talk about the implications of this investor-state resolution, dispute resolution system. But I also want to talk about sort of the real implications when we talk about pharmaceuticals, when we talk about just the regulations broadly. And then I want to talk about some of the politics surrounding this, because like you say, this is still in play. And we know to a certain extent where the different presidential candidates stand on this. But I want to hammer this out and see if we can't find at least some type of timeline and potential scenarios as to how this political fight moves forward. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Lori Wallach.
In 1980, 52 separate corporations owned the media, ranging from newspapers to magazines to television. TV media was considered a marketplace for important ideas and investigative stories. America had one of the most vibrant media infrastructures in the world. Today, 5 multi-conglomerate corporations own all of it. They own all the media, TV, radio, newspaper, and magazines. The truth is, meaningful reporting has died. It's created a window, a void that can be occupied by outlets like Free Speech TV, where advertisers and powerful politicos and NBAs don't tell us what we can or cannot say. They don't tell us what we can or can't report. Corporate media is dead, ladies and gentlemen. But truth-teller outlets like Free Speech TV, well, they're just now being born. So here's the problem. If you want reporting that's not controlled by a corporate-owned and dominated CEO, if you believe that you deserve a sincere reporting outlet that has no allegiance, no political party affiliation, if you understand that our democracy required diversity and truthfulness and courage and commitment and telling the whole truth about wars or the economy or corporate corruption or our environment, if you believe that and you understand that, then you understand that you have to be in control of that message. That's what we do at Free Speech TV. Not the Beltway, not Wall Street, not Madison Avenue. You are in control by empowering Free Speech TV, by giving us the financial support, the tools to do what we promise to do for you every day, right here on Ring of Fire, 5 days a week. My pledge to you is that not a dollar is going to be wasted. Every dollar you pledge to Free Speech TV is going to be honored as your commitment to change. News reporting is going to change right here, right now. The truth is we're a family here at Free Speech TV who cares for, believes in, and advocates for what you believe in every day. I'm asking for your financial support to allow us to do our job the way you deserve. Go online to freespeech.org to help keep honest, independent media on the air. In the truest sense, Free Speech TV has the potential to be our line in the sand, a statement that TV reporting does have the capacity to create the kind of outrage that puts Wall Street white-collar criminals in prison. Your voice, delivered through free speech programming, really does have the potential outrage that demands that we save our planet from fossil fuel outlaws who are going to drill and frack until our grandchildren exist around an irreversible environment catastrophe. When you turn on Free Speech TV, you're going to hear our outrage. Your demands are going to be articulated by some of the most important voices in progressive media. Tom Hartman, Amy Goodman, real journalists who have devoted their lives to being your voice for your cause. Your voice only stays alive if you believe that what you think every day, what you believe every day, what you're committed to every day can show up on a network like Free Speech TV. Your voice delivered on a sustainable TV outlet unlike any other network. Think about it. Your voice kept us out of a war in Syria. Your voice saved the internet from corporate control. It was your voice, your outrage that forced Obama time after time to do what he was unwilling to do. Free Speech TV is your voice. Believe that your voice, your beliefs are important enough to be heard. I promise I will speak your voice. To do that, I'm going to need your help. Go to freespeech.org and help preserve your voice in the national media.
So, Lori, when we broke, you were telling us about the investor-state dispute resolution system that is embedded in the TPP. We see it in NAFTA, like you mentioned, at your site at tradewatch.org. You can go and see the various different industries where the U.S. government or other governments have had to pay out to companies in these industries that had a presumed profit that they were somehow denied. I mean, in some ways, this is sort of like a weird type of eminent domain type of situation. But instead of the eminent domain being used for the benefit of society, it's like an eminent domain right that lies within private corporations to have a profit under every circumstance. So theoretically, right? I mean, tell me if I'm wrong about this. We could find out 20 years from now, 10 years from now, 3 years from now, under the TPP, that a certain product causes cancer, or a certain product increases global warming, or a certain product, it causes disease or kills off a species. And if we attempted to regulate it, it's quite possible we would basically have to pay off some corporation for that privilege of writing our own laws?
Here's an example of how it works. There are certain specifics and details that have to be followed, but here's just a perfect example of that kind of scenario. So Canada decided to ban a gasoline additive called MTBE. It was known, MMT, was known to be a carcinogen. It's banned in all reformulated gasoline in the U.S. They decided they would also implement a ban. The company that made it, Ethel Corporation of the U.S., said, well, hold on, not so fast. Under NAFTA, we have certain rights as a foreign investor, and you can't just get rid of our product like that. You can't just ban this product without compensating us, or, we have NAFTA rights. And so they basically filed one of these investor state cases, and ultimately the tribunal was going to rule in their favor, so Canada settled with them. They reversed the ban, so the stuff could be sold again. They paid them $13 million for the time they had taken it off the market, and the company, as part of the settlement, got Canada to issue statements in newspapers in developing countries saying that Canada finds its product to be very safe and no problem whatsoever, so that they could sell it in other countries. That's an actual example of a scenario just like you described. But also, the other kind of cases have been things like timber policy or bans, water rights, or bans of risky financial products. There's a wide range of policies going to be attacked. If you think about the TPP writ large, it is this retrograde agreement that not only will lock us from doing the things we need to do for social equality, for good jobs, for a clean environment, to save the planet from climate chaos, but it rolls back some of the best achievements. And the only upside, as I started out by saying, is it's not a done deal. The deal that was signed is so extreme that there are large blocks of Democrats in Congress who already oppose it. This is a fight that's going to happen in the House of Representatives. Just imagine this. The TPP rolls back the modest progress that the congressional Democrats made George W. Bush put into his trade agreements vis-a-vis environmental standards. Bush, in the face of not passing another trade agreement, had to put into his agreements a deal where, as part of the agreement, the countries had to actually implement the standards of 7 big environmental treaties, and if they didn't do it, it was a violation of the agreement. The TPP guts that. It's down to 1 of those 7 agreements, and instead of binding environmental standards, there's language replacing those binding standards that says things like, we should strive to avoid hurting in the future, sometimes creating policies that might help a whale. I mean, I'm being sarcastic now, but there used to be specific bans on harm to marine mammals, and now there's a bunch of squishy language that means nothing. And the Sierra Club has done a terrific analysis of this. But if you think of most of those members on that list, or Congresswoman Sinema, who really cares about Buy America and cares about national security, this agreement is seen as fundamentally weakening our ability to manufacture the goods we need for our basic infrastructure. When you think of our security, you think of safe roads, you think of bridges that don't fall down, you think of water systems that people can rely on and safely have their children drink water. Those are the things that this agreement undermines, that though that list of Democrats in your listening area are very, very much caring about. And it's our job to make sure the members all publicly are saying no. Because as you said, this is becoming a very hot political issue.
Yeah, and we just have a minute left. But, I mean, we know now, Bernie Sanders has been a long-time opponent of the TPP. Hillary Clinton has somewhat recently announced her opposition to the TPP. But we should, always take a critical eye on this, because we heard, President Obama say on the campaign trail he's going to renegotiate NAFTA, and he never did, obviously. How much, I wonder, and we just have a minute here, how much do you anticipate this is going to become a real issue in the race? Because it doesn't seem to have become, it's a bit of an issue in the Democratic side, but do you anticipate this could become an issue in the general?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the ironic twist is it is probably Trump who, at every campaign event, trashes the TPP as a stupidly negotiated agreement that's going to gut our manufacturing. his critique of it is slightly different, certainly, than the Democrats. But at the heart of it, it has to do with a badly negotiated agreement that lets other countries, just as a commercial matter, cheat on currency, dump their products here, do race to the bottom standards for the environment, for workers, and then compete in a way that the U.S. firms and workers can never win. And
so, Lori,
he brings it up in every event, and Sanders bringing it up has made Clinton have to be against it. The only person who's been quiet is Rubio. Cruz is against too.
Can you just tell us again, if people want to get more information, if they want to have some arguments to try and convince their congresspeople, where do they go to get that information?
So the best campaigny stuff, short stuff, is at Expose the TPP, one word, exposetpp.org, www.exposetpp.org. If you want to get down into the weeds a little bit more, if you think what I said about those investor tribunals sounds lunatic, go to tradewatch.org, go to our TPP page. We have each of the issues I talked about. You can read detailed reports. You can read news stories. It's more policy stuff, the campaigny stuff, tradewatch.org.
Thanks so much, Lori Wallach, for your time.
Thank you.